So now let's see. So we just came up with this chunk here. Let's see how that fits into our 3-act structure. So, moment of truth. Protagonist learns the true nature of the central conflict. Okay, all right. So, in order to hit that and make the bell ring, let's just say that let's add one more bullet point in here. So then we would have to add a little thing in here where the boss Sorrow, like either through trying to tempt the friend or saying something to Gafgarin or something like that, but the boss Sorrow reveals the idea that Gafgarin's meant to become the 7th Sorrow. Because like Svedanta didn't say anything about it. She just said, I have plans for you, like kind of thing, you know? So that would hit the beat of new clues about the nature of the conflict. And then here we could hit that beat where the true nature of the central conflict, right? Where it's that he needs to like prove himself because she wants him to be the 7th Sorrow. Plot 2. Oh, okay, and that hits the beat for that too. So that would also, so I would say that we would get our moment of truth and kind of our pinch point, our second pinch point, like sort of like in the same breath here, so to speak. And you know, all, like when we actually start putting stuff together, like in an engine, we can always like, you know, make changes as necessary to sort of spread this out. But we're just getting a pen and paper stage right now, so we're just working with what we got. But so let's see, foreshadows, plot point 2, and a reminder of what's at stake, and then we have the renewed push. Interesting. So in the 3-act structure, it doesn't really leave room for that whole idea of the abyss and all that kind of stuff, right? But that's interesting, though. I mean, these things aren't like, you're not supposed to go off of them exactly, you know? They're just supposed to be frameworks and little guides to help you along, I guess. Plot point 2, everything comes together for the protagonist and the friends. Climax, twist, loose ends, right? All right, so we're coming close to the end here. So we've got to get into a renewed push and a reminder of what's at stake, right? So do we need? I don't think we need like the abyss or that like severe low point kind of thing. I'm gonna put this down as a note for myself here. So there's an idea here, like the one thing that like none of the characters in the game are quite like grasping is that because of the nature of their existence and the dream and the nightmare and the world being a prison and all this kind of stuff, they're like a lot of you know, different people over the years have been of the mind that if you can kill Svedanta or destroy her, that it'll somehow free the world from the problem, because like there's all these issues, right? There's like the fact that, you know, like some people think that it'll get rid of mortality and people will stop dying, right? That like you'll break the cycle of life and death, and then everyone will have eternal life, and it'll like the world will be a paradise. Some people think that it'll make it'll make the gods stop coming, because on this world, whenever Svedanta's about to escape, the gods come back and they destroy it's like Armageddon, right? Like they destroy the world and reseed it. And so the world's had several apocalypses in the past. And that's what the whole thing with the Emperor being wounded is that they sent Svedanta awakening this time. She only needed one more sorrow, right? And so they had come, or they sent the old ones, which are like godlike messengers, right? That go and basically check and make sure Svedanta's not awake. And when they came, and they usually are the ones who actually like destroy the stuff and like raise everything. Like they sort of pave the way for like the gods to come in and reseed everything. And so when they showed up, the Emperor and the whole Mage Hunter era was like they knew they were coming. Like as part of like their discovery of Magitech and the dwarves and stuff, they figured all this stuff out. And so they knew they were coming. And so basically like the whole Mage Hunter era was designed to funnel all of the power and resources up to one champion, who was the Emperor. And he fought them and defeated them and drove them away. But he was wounded in the process. And so he was, you know, so that's why he's like in this like regenerative sleep when the player plays. But, so you know, like the Emperor's of the mind that that once he regenerates, then he's going to go take on Svedanta and he's going to kill her, right? And then their world will be free and they can decide what they want to do with stuff and everything, right? But the truth of the matter is that when Svedanta dies, the world dies, because it's her dream that gives everything life, right? Like magic and all that kind of stuff has become so ingrained in everything that when you get rid of it, like almost everything on the planet will die. Like, you know, like all the magical trees, all the magical creatures, any magic users, like it has effects on their body, like physiologically, and so like to just get rid of it suddenly is like just pulling an organ out almost, and like, you know, you can't work without a beating heart, like kind of thing. And so it's actually the nature of her existence is that it's like a necessary evil kind of thing, that it's like you can't break the balance, you know what I mean? There's always balance. And so to get rid of her, right, to slay the devil, so to speak, would actually be the end of life and death. Would be the end of just life and death as you know it. Like it would disrupt the balance and just basically cause everything to cease to exist. Like, you know. And so at some point, the reason why I'm putting this note in here for me, and so the idea I'm thinking of as like sort of a setup is that if you reveal this knowledge to Gafgarin, it can inform his final decisions at the end of the game, right? So that's just why I'm putting that in there, just in case I need it, so I don't forget it. So during funeral, or talking to strangers, reveals her past emotions to Gafgarin. Renewed push. Right, so here in the renewed push is when they decide, you know, they're like, you know, our third friend went out like a G. You know, let's not waste any time. Let's push through. Let's get these guys. So by this time, oh man, so now we're running into a problem here though. On the 3-act structure, we're almost at the end. Like, as a matter of fact, technically this should be like almost at the climax, right? So everything comes together for his protagonist and friends. Right, so we get this renewed push. And so I guess that whole everything coming together would be you just starting to drop bosses in succession, right? As the player. As you get, like, each level has a new sorrow boss. You know, you bring the fight to them. You start taking them out. And we've got 5. That just seems like kind of a long 75 to 87%. You know what I mean? 5 stages. How many stages have we done up until this point? Well, let's do it like this too, just for better visualization here. So we got level 1 is the intro. Level 2, level 3 is, we're going to call this the MacGuffin misdirect, because there's that guy and he's like, why'd you set me up? And they're like, because I wanted to see you fail. Well, I wanted to test you. Or it's really what it is they wanted to test them, right? And then the Svedanta call out and first sorrow boss. Level 4 is your first boss? Your first, like, real sorrow boss? Maybe. We'll have to see how that feels, like, when we're actually, like, putting the game together. So I have to call out for sorrow boss, and then 6, 7, 8, and 9 would be sorrow bosses, right? And then you would have your 2 stages. How are we still at 11? Doesn't seem right. I feel like I'm missing something. Hang on. All right, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. Maybe I was thinking 7 in my head. Okay. So you got the intro level or stage. Then you've got a stage that's directed to kind of tutorial and a direction. We might even be able to blend these two when we actually get to doing game stuff. Then you have, we'll call it the MacGuffin misdirect, where they you go to do this thing to get the stuff. Maybe whatever it is you need here, you get as the final game mechanic, right? Like the last thing you get from sorrow bosses. So and like, so not only can we blend these two, but we might be able to blend these two when we get to, like, actually putting stuff together, like in the game engine. We'll see how it rivals out. We'll see how it all pans out. And then so we've got the rival friend and second sorrow boss, and maybe you get whatever you're trying to get here or there, right? Something like that. And then you've got kind of you just sort of like, this is sort of like the cruise point in the game, right? Where you're knocking out bosses. And then once you've gotten that boss, you have what I'll call the final stage, transitory stage, right? So it's going to be like maybe something story-wise that happens. The first, like the first floor of a castle or whatever, you know. And then this is going to be the last stage that actually leads to the final fight. So we're looking at up to 11 stages for this game. How many stages do these games usually have? Super Ghouls and Ghosts. That's what I was thinking of. It has 8 levels. Okay. What about like Hollow Knight or something like that? It doesn't have a specific number of levels in the traditional sense. Areas to explore, Forgotten Roads, Green Path, City of Tears, Fungal Waste. And so we may be able to map in a similar style, right? Because that's how Metroid's set up too, right? As you go to it's all like kind of a continuous map, and you go and explore stuff. But right now, we're coming at it from the perspective that we're going to do levels like in Super Ghouls and Ghosts. Yeah, like in Super Ghouls and Ghosts. What's another game like this that I could check? So the original NES Castlevania had 18 levels. 6 blocks of 3 stages each. Interesting. I forgot about doing it that way too, right? Like doing it into blocks with multiple stages. So that's always an option too. All right, so I think that we're sitting pretty safe at 11. And then if we want to do something like splitting it up into blocks or stages or something like that, I feel pretty confident. I feel like we've got a chunky enough content here for like an actual platformer or like Castlevania type or Metroidvania or whatever they're called. So let's see. We're getting into the end of our Act 3. Right? And I guess technically you could say the Abyss kind of thing could be... the Abyss and Revelation could be that the friend is killed and then the other friend reveals their emotions. Right? So I guess we do kind of like hit on that beat too. And then while also like doing our 3-act structure. So let me think here. So now we need to finish this up. So we know all that stuff's going to happen now. Let's go into renewed push. The band together defeats Vedanta. And then we've got our 4 levels of bosses. I just do this to visualize things, keep stuff rolling in my head. So, because what I'm thinking of doing is there's 2 ways to do it, right? And they'll make the endings feel dramatically different. As I'm thinking of, 1, either revealing the truth of their world to Gafgarin, and it being like, hey, you can't kill Svedanta, like even if you were able to, because if you do, it's not going to remove the curse, it's going to remove everything, right? In which case, when the player wins the game by losing, basically, it's more of a like oh, I can't kill it, like a choice, right? Like it's more like a choice. But if you don't reveal it, then it's almost like a reminder that you can't escape your fate, like sort of thing, right? And then we have to ask ourselves what happens to the friend, right? Like the friend who has these feelings for him kind of thing, because now she's there too. And if it's a choice, right, where he just kind of like, that's kind of a crappy thing to do. Like if you can't explain it to the other character, and if the other characters knows ahead of time, then why would they even go with you to defeat her if they, you know what I mean? Like, you know, so you gotta be careful how to do it. And what I'm thinking is that if something were to happen to the girl character, that she has to be left behind for the final battle, right? So that she's not there. Like, and maybe this reveal doesn't happen until it happens at a time where he either doesn't have enough time, or there's just not a window of opportunity, or it happens afterwards. But he does, like, for whatever reason, he becomes privy to the knowledge, the other character does not, and then he has to immediately fight Svedanta and make that decision, right? So the other one's just not in on it at all. And if you can put the power in his hands like that, then there's still the problem of, if he's like even if it's some sort of sacrificial thing, right, where he's like, oh well, I can't kill, like I have to serve her because until I find a better way, because if I just kill her, like, you know, it'll destroy the world, because then that girl, like, you know, the other character's waiting wherever they are. And I don't want to just kill that character off, right? Like the other one's already died. like kind of thing. Like how can we make it still like kind of poignant and meaningful, and not just feel like like we're like tossing her aside or making him sort of like just sort of give up at the end or whatever. And so what I'm thinking is maybe if we have the stranger character in the last boss fight gets like injured or something happens to them, but the nature of their injury is that they need to be put in some sort of stasis, right? And there's already precedent for this in the Neverspring Chronicles stuff, right? Like the mage chrysalisk that you find Androlane in. And so the friend has to be preserved, right? So now that buys us some time. That buys us a lot if we can, if like that we navigate this properly. We still have an ace up our sleeve too, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, right? We still have the reveal that we can use if we want to, that Gafgarin didn't really try to remove the curse until it was his problem. You know what I mean? So we still have that card to play if we want to. Because if we need to like apply any kind of pressure or tension or conflict between Gafgarin and the character, perhaps we can do it that way. But right now, just prototyping this, as I said, just coming up with the first rough draft. But what we got so far, I think, is a pretty strong start. We just need an end, right? All right, so what that buys us now, if we go with that way, right? Or like, and maybe it doesn't even have to be like they're wounded either, like, right? Like maybe because we can get our game mechanics involved at this point too, right? Because we've got these 7 sorrows, which of course, as you can sure, their powers will be just as themed as their ensemble. Loss will have something specific to her. Regret will have something specific, or desire will have something specific to her. Rage will have something specific to him. You know what I mean? Like, and so maybe like neglect or something like that has some sort of mechanic where somebody gets banished and forgotten or something like that, or has to exist in some weird like dimension of neglect or something. See, maybe you could even incorporate it into the level design, right? Like maybe there's something that requires 2 people to open it, kind of thing. But one of them gets trapped, and like the friend knowingly does it, and it's like, you'll get me out of here, right? And like Gafgarin's like, yeah, totally, like basically find a way to isolate and preserve the other character. Okay, so now what this does is this frees up our hands to let Gafgarin make a decision without making it so brutal on the other character, right? And what I mean by that is, whether it's a choice or not, the fact that he that he does not defeat Svedanta at the end, right, and he doesn't kill her, means that this character could, like, they don't know, right? Like the state of existence they're in, like to them it's almost like whether it's something instant, like they go to sleep and then they wake up if they ever get released, or if it's something more like they're there waiting, but they're isolated, so they don't know what's going on, right? So they just have to wait and wonder, kind of thing. Whatever the situation is, it leaves them in the dark, which is important, I think. And so, because the idea is that if we reveal this in the truth of this world to the Gafgarin character or the player, then it's going to, I almost feel like we also need to reveal something else, right? Like, because the idea is that, so it's like, okay, so you think that you're going to free the world and remove the Kiss of Shadow curse by destroying Svedanta, but that's not the way to do it, right? It's like that if you do it that way, you're going to destroy the world. And so I feel like that in order to, because just to keep to keep the story from being just a total downer, you know what I mean, and to make the ending make sense as a standalone game, right? Because we got to do that too. There's always this, like, maybe somebody who plays this game can't stand JRPGs and they have no desire to find out the rest of the story that way, right? Like, the game has to be able to stand on its own. So as a standalone game, in order to keep the ending engaging and not just like a downer, we need to give like a light of hope at the end, right? And so if you're going to say, hey, you can't do this thing you've been trying to do all the way, then you've got to also say, but there's another way, right? And yeah, so like I wrote a little note here to remind myself, right? So there has to be another way. So we need to come up with an idea that the other way, like what the other way is. And the other way needs to involve basically like it's something that's going to take time, or it's going to take getting back to the world or something like that, right? Something where the only choice, whether you give in or fight, is to lose and fight again another day. You see what I'm saying? So now what we have to decide is, how do we do this properly in a game, right? As an end boss fight, because you're supposed to beat the end boss in a game like this. Like, why even fight, right? Like, if you know that you can't win, and I don't mean like you can't win, but like you really can't win. Like, if you kill them, you kill yourself, like kind of thing. And it's not even a sacrifice at that point, right? Because he kills everyone else too. Like, what do you do? Like, why would you even fight? So then it becomes something different. Now, like, so if we reveal this information to Gafgarin, then his motivations are going to change, right? Like, it's going to become apparent that he needs to allow Svedanta's plans to kind of unravel, right? Like, to like play out. He needs to make sure that he gets accepted, right? That he becomes the seventh sorrow. So, like, and I think there was something like that in the act too, right? Like, there's a twist, or the protagonist learns that everything is the opposite of what he thought. Okay, yeah, so this would be the perfect way of doing like that twist, right? Is that turns out you don't want to kill her. You need to get closer to her. And so he needs to, in his own way, in a way that's like proper for the Gafgarin character, he needs to kind of submit to Svedanta, like temporarily, right? Like the whole like, I work for her, but I don't work for her thing. But it's got to be convincing too, right? So what we need is we need an option B that can let us give Gafgarin the motivation to almost kind of like throw the fight, so to speak. Now, of course, there is also the option of pitting these two against one another at the end, because we have something at our disposal here. Svedanta is very much, being the goddess of chaos and stuff, the kind of person to weaponize the emotions between these two, especially for the one that has feelings to manipulate. So now what we have to ask ourselves is what we know of this character. We're just kind of doing this as like a side thing, right? Like a possible other way of doing this, right? If we don't want to like isolate and preserve the character in that way, maybe we can, after you destroy, the last sorrow, whatever. So you've got the two of them that are going to stand together against Svedanta. And then let's say that Svedanta reveals something like she's actually torn between who to choose, right? That this whole time the test wasn't just for Gafgarin, that all three of the friends were of interest to her. And so she kind of reveals that she's like, okay, now that you've defeated all the other sorrows and proved that you're stronger than they are, now I want to know who's stronger between the two of you. Right? And so, of course, at first they're like, that's stupid. Why would we fight each other? That's not, we're cool, But maybe this is a good time to reveal, or like Svedanta tells her, like reveals to her that Gafgarin was never going to fulfill his promise of like curing them of the thing, right? That he only did what he did because of Milena. That he's only where he is now because of Milena. Like if it wasn't because of Milena, then he wouldn't even be here now. He'd be living his life. And if they had gotten together, he would have completely forgotten about this person, right? And so maybe she uses this to stoke that tension between them and get them to fight like one another. And now remember that this is predicated on the idea that Gafgarin now has that knowledge about his world. And that now he knows that he needs to, if he's ever to break the curse, the only way to do it is basically to make sure that he becomes the seventh sorrow, and to basically like lets Vedanta do what she wants to do, and then like basically he's got to bide his time. He's got to wait and find an opportunity. Or like the way to do it is in the other world, and it's something that like, you know, that he knows that he has to do, and so, you know, he can't just like trust the other character to do it. We could pit them against one another, maybe. Would that be a strong enough thing, though? I feel like it would, only if at some point in the story, when she professes her love kind of thing, Gafgarin sort of like, without really meaning it, like accepts that love, right? If she's like, oh, I've always felt this way about you, and he's like, oh yeah, totally, cool, whatever. You know what I mean? But in reality, he's still keeping secrets, to the sense that, like, you know, he's wanting to like do this thing or whatever. And then when she finds out that not only was he not even going to be there except for this other chick, but like all the stuff he's doing was for this other chick, you know, kind of thing. And that like what he says are lies. Like maybe she thinks that she can't believe what he said at all. Like kind of thing, and maybe she goes after him, because I don't foresee this character being seduced by power. It doesn't quite make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me that Savanta would just simply be like, hey, now you guys should fight, and whichever one of you does gets to be like a totally cool, sweet Dark Lord, you know. And then she's just like, well, boy, do I, you know, and like she just like jumps at the idea. Like I don't see that happening. This person needs to be. It is unfortunate, but they need to be hurt in order to lash out, right? You know, because here we could even like kind of like reveal a bit of Gafgarin's character, right? Like if he does return her feelings, why does he do it? Because it would be a dishonesty, because even before all the Milena stuff went down, he wasn't interested in this person, right? And now he's even colder than he used to be. A lot of Gafgarin's arc is his fall. And so, like, and he falls further and further and further away from, you know, the person that he wanted to be initially. And so, like, you know, why does he do this? Why is it dishonest? And so what I'm thinking is, if we do go this route, right, like if he somehow returns her affection, or, you know, or you know, he says something like encouraging, why does he do it? Gafgarin's not the kind of person to spare someone's feelings, so he wouldn't do it just to make her feel better. But I do think he would do it if he felt like he needed her to complete his mission. You know what I'm saying? Or if he needed something from her to complete his mission. And then, because if we do it that way, then I think that you could apply enough pressure to this character to get them to turn on Gafgarin, even if it's just for a moment, like in like a moment of anger.